Now, if you remember back to the last time we met, Moses had been trying to persuade Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to free the Israelites from slavery in Egypt and let them go home to Israel. But Pharaoh had been very stubborn. I will not let your people go. You see, he didn't want to lose his slaves. So God sent plagues on Egypt. The river Nile was turned to blood and the fish died. Then there was a plague of frogs, and then a plague of gnats, and then flies. But Pharaoh still wouldn't let the people go. So there was animal disease, and then a plague of boils. But Pharaoh still wouldn't let the people go. So God sent a hailstorm, and then a plague of locusts. But Pharaoh still wouldn't let the people go. And then everything went black. There was darkness over all of Egypt, all except for the part where the Israelites lived. But Pharaoh still would not let the people go. Silly, silly Pharaoh. 9 chances to do the right thing, and he still did the wrong thing. But you see, you can't argue with God, because God is God after all. So this is what happened next. So Moses prayed to God. God said, I will bring one more plague on Egypt, but it will be terrible, even worse than everything that has happened so far. But then Pharaoh will let my people go. Go and speak to Pharaoh one more time. So Moses went to Pharaoh. God says that tonight at midnight he will go through the land of Egypt. The eldest son in every family that listens to you, Pharaoh, instead of listening to God, will die, including your own son, Pharaoh. He will die too. How terrible. Did Pharaoh pay any attention? No. He thought he was so important that he was bigger than God, and he didn't take any notice at all. How very, very silly he was. Then Moses spoke to the Israelites. This is what God says. As soon as the sun goes down, each family must take a lamb, and it must be a pure lamb with no spots or blemishes on it. The lamb must be sacrificed. Then take some of the blood of the lamb and take a branch of hyssop. Put the hyssop into the blood and then put some of the blood onto the door frame and across the top of the door frame of your houses. Everyone must do this. Then build a fire. Here's some wood to build a fire. And cook the meat. You must roast the meat over the fire and not boil it. And then when the meat is roasted, you must eat the meat with bitter herbs like this and flat bread. And the reason that your bread will be flat is because you're leaving in a hurry and you will not have time to put yeast into your bread to make it rise. And this is how you must eat it. You must be wearing your travelling cloak like this. And you must tuck your cloak into your belt like this. You must be wearing your sandals and you must be carrying your staff which is like a walking stick, like Moses had himself. Because this shows that you are all ready to leave. Because this time Pharaoh will let you go. At midnight, God says, he will pass through the whole land of Egypt, and the firstborn in every house will die. But when he comes to a house with the blood of the lamb on the doorframe like this, he will just pass over it and no one will die. The blood of the lamb will show God that a family who trusts God and listens to God rather than Pharaoh lives there. Those people will be safe. So that is what the Israelites did. And that night, everyone who listened to Moses and did what Moses said and what God had said, when God passed over Egypt, everyone in the houses with the blood on the door frames was safe. The following morning, there was crying and wailing all over Egypt because the firstborn in every household that had followed Pharaoh had died, including Pharaoh's own son. But all of the firstborn in the houses that trusted God were safe. Pharaoh called Moses. Go, just go. Take all your people, all your possessions, and all your animals, and just get out of Egypt. Finally, God's people were free. So Moses led the people out of Egypt towards Israel. And they took with them all their animals, and also the Egyptians gave them some extra clothes for the journey and gold and silver for their journey. And they left Egypt behind. Then God said to Moses, once a year, every year, tell the people that they must remember their rescue from Egypt by eating lamb for supper, with bitter herbs and flat bread, like that. Because it's the day that God passed over the houses in Egypt with the blood of the lamb on the doorframes, and Pharaoh finally set God's people free. And that is why it's called Passover. And you know, to this very day, the Jewish people, the Israelites, do that every year. So let's think what we can learn from this week's Bible story. Most importantly, God keeps his promises. He did rescue his people, just like he said he would. So do listen to God and do what he says. Pharaoh and the Egyptians didn't listen to God, and look what happened to them. Now, God has also rescued us. You see, Jesus is like our Passover lamb. Jesus died, and his blood saves us, like the blood of the Passover lamb saved the Israelites all those years ago. And we talked about that at Easter, and we will be talking about it again in the future. So remember, trusting God, he keeps his promises and he saves his people. And now we're going to do our craft to help us remember the story and to tell it to other people.